So what's included in the Hauseit 1% for full service listing option? We'll demystify this topic in the following video. My name is Chris at Hauseit. Hauseit is the largest assisted for sale by owner and buyer agent commission rebate company in New York City, established 2014. The 1% for full service listing option is a comprehensive full service listing just like you would receive at any other traditional brokerage firm in the city or across the state. The listing comes with professional photography and a custom 2D floor plan. Both the professional photos and the floor plan will be taken and drawn at the same up to 1 hour appointment at a time and date of your choice. All showings, including private appointments and open houses, will be taken care of by one of our partner agents. And speaking of showings, you will have one point person, one lead listing agent throughout the entire process, though of course our teams are rather large and there will always be a person for backup should the point person not be available for a showing. We also offer comprehensive, industry standard listing syndication to up to hundreds of third-party websites, many of whom you've heard of, such as StreetEasy, Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com, New York Times, Homes.com, and so on. Your listing will also be co-broked in the relevant MLS or the RLS in New York City for your region. All scheduling, coordination, and negotiation with buyers agents, and managing agents will be handled by the partner agent. This also includes any scheduling and coordination with the tenant if there is a tenant in place. If it is a condo, co-op, or condop building with a purchase application, then the listing agent will be able to help out with the buyer's agent or the buyer, if it is a direct buyer, on the purchase application in terms of answering any questions, guiding the buyer through it, and perhaps assembling the board package. Pricing assistance is also included in the 1% for full service listing option. Usually, our seller customers are very confident of where they wish to list it at, and they know the comps in their building and their neighborhood. However, if you are unsure, we can always put together some comps, put together a comparative market analysis, and give you an idea of where you should price your home to be most competitive on the market. Keep in mind that the initial listing price is agreed upon by both parties, and the reason for that is the listing price must be reasonable and there must be a chance of selling it, as obviously we cannot commit resources to marketing a listing and having agents run around and show a property if it is priced much too high and no one will show up. However, please rest assured that we are very reasonable, so if there is a good chance of selling it, we will certainly do our best to try, and we are usually quite amenable to the listing price that owners suggest. Now, let's answer some common questions that sellers typically ask about the 1% for full service listing option. Is there a limit to the number of open houses that can be held? No. Our teams are happy to hold open houses every Sunday as long as folks show up and they're interested buyers. If, for some reason, the property is overpriced and the market has clearly demonstrated such, and folks don't show up at open houses, then we certainly should talk, as we cannot commit resources to have agents sit around for 2 hours every Sunday at an empty open house. How does the commission structure work, and is commission only paid at closing? Yes, commission is only paid at closing if it closes. The commission structure, as you might already know, is 1% to the listing broker plus 2.5% or 3% to a buyer's agent. The reason you want to offer something market rate to buyer's agents is because 90% of all buyers are still represented by a buyer's agent. Even though 3% is more common, 2.5% is certainly something you can get away with in the New York City metro area, and keep in mind that commission rates can vary in other parts. For example, if you get further away from core New York City, like Northern Bronx or Eastern Queens, you might see different or lower commission structures or norms. So to recap, it would be 1% to the listing broker plus 2.5% to the buyer's agent. If the listing broker found a direct buyer, then the listing broker would waive the 1% listing fee and only keep the buyer agent fee of, let's say, 2.5% or 3%. So assuming that the co-broke is 2.5%, then your total cost for full service is 2.5% or more likely 3.5% versus 6% all in. Why is the commission not 1% if the owner helps introduce a direct buyer? The reason that most full-service listing arrangements are exclusive right-to-sell listing agreements is because such an arrangement, where the listing broker gets paid regardless of how the buyer is procured, reduces conflicts of interest between the seller and the listing agent. As you can imagine, if there is a different commission structure for the owner procuring a buyer versus the listing agent, it can get quite dicey, and it could lead to arguments and conflicts between the listing agent and his or her client over who actually procured the buyer. For example, let's say that the owner claims that George, a buyer, was his or her friend that she spoke with last week. However, George may also have inquired directly on the property via StreetEasy or Realtor.com and contacted the listing agent as well. Or George could have walked in and spoken with the listing agent at last Sunday's open house. So in this case, who actually procured the buyer? We avoid these types of conflicts by having an exclusive right to sell listing agreement, which is the standard for full service listing agreements. And this way, you don't have to worry about any potential conflicts, and keep in mind, you certainly don't want to discourage the listing broker from showing his or her own listing. Any buyer is worth 2.5% or 3% on another listing, so it certainly wouldn't make sense for our listing brokers to quote unquote shoot themselves in the foot by showing their own listing. Are there any other fees? For example, professional photos and a floor plan. Are those included, or do you have to pay for them? First of all, let's say that unlike other firms, our partner brokerages don't charge a traditional marketing expense reimbursement clause of say $1,000, $2,000 or more if it doesn't sell. Instead, our partner brokerages levy a $300 essentially credit card hold upfront to partially cover the cost of the professional photos and the floor plan, which are yours to keep. If it sells, these are technically free, because you can simply send an email to our partner brokers and they'd be happy to reduce the commission by the $300. If, however, they don't hear from you on day 2, you are free to use the photos and the floor plan at another time if you wish. Please keep in mind that our partner brokerages are taking a significant haircut in commission, and therefore by paying $300 upfront to partially cover the cost of the professional photos lets you put some skin in the game and demonstrate that you are also serious about this transaction. Is there a time limit or a tenor for the listing agreement? Yes, our listing agreements are 180 days or 6 months, which is industry standard. The reason for this is, as of this filming, the average days on market from being listed to in contract for the New York City market is approximately 4 months. We would certainly not want a shorter listing agreement, because the listing agreement would then expire before, statistically, the listing is able to get into contract. Can you cancel the listing agreement if something goes wrong, or if I change my mind, or if I decide to move back into my apartment and not sell? Technically, the listing agreement can only be modified by mutual agreement by both parties. However, no one can force you to show or sell your apartment. If you decide to not sell, well, no one's going to force you to sell it. It's as simple as that. The agreement is in place to protect the listing broker from very rare situations, such as a buyer being procured and the seller trying to go around the listing broker in order to not pay commission. Please keep in mind that our listing brokers are very reasonable, business-minded people, and if for some reason a personal situation like this occurs, please simply speak to the listing broker and we can sort it out. Anyway, we hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please hit like and subscribe. We do come out with content on a regular basis. If you have any questions, please feel free to shoot us an email, team@hauseit.com, the spelling is below, or leave us a comment below, and we'll get back to you right away.